right, everyone. So, welcome back to Veterans for Cannabis. I'm Jared Campbell, and joined always with me, my big brother, Big C,
Yo,
Carlos.
yo,
What's going on,
what's
brother?
going on, Pips? Hey, man, same good old stuff.
Oh man, it's
Same
good.
good stuff, man. It's been a blessing to be alive.
Man, it's
How
always
about
good to
you,
be
man? How
back.
you doing?
Man, I'm good, blessed. You know that? I can't complain.
Yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah, man. So go ahead, man. Get us started, man.
All right, brother. So, over the last 5 weeks, we've been breaking down the Supreme Court case one step at a time. Like always, we started with the ruling itself. Then we looked at the ATF Form 4473. We also examined Ali Khamenei, who he was and why the case matters so much. Then after that, we talked about the constitutional question that was brought before the court. And last week, we asked why alcohol and cannabis continue to be treated so differently under federal law. But I think we all arrived at the question that's probably the most personal, especially for all of us who have served, because the case itself isn't just about marijuana. It isn't just about firearms. It's about veterans. It's about PTSD, chronic pain, traumatic brain injuries, sleep disorders, and it's also about opioid alternatives. And for millions of veterans, it's about whether they should have to choose between treating the wounds of war or exercising a constitutional right. With all that, brother, what comes to mind when you hear the opening?
What comes to mind is where we at. In a personal view, where am I in my how all of this had affected me? Because in a way, I don't know how to say this without incriminating myself, but I'm gonna do what's right for me regardless. You understand what I mean? But having the protection of the federal government, they saying, yeah, this could be some benefits. It's a huge relief because now I'm not going to jail. You know what I mean? So I think this movement is going to be very good. It's going to be, and I said it before, I think it's going to be a generational shift. Personally, I always go back and look at it how, the laws and the addiction has affected my family, because like, my dad being a Vietnam veteran, I think my dad preferred weed over heroin, but my uncle was a hardcore heroin addict, and both were Vietnam veterans. So I look at that and I see how, one was ultimately deemed dangerous, more dangerous than the other, and ultimately was banned from Vietnam. Okay. In early Vietnam, people used to smoke weed, right? But then they realized it smelled too bad and the federal government recognized that as an illegal substance. And they say, hey, you guys cannot smoke weed no more, right? So now they have to figure out a way to help cope with the war. And what ended up happening, they got the most pure opiate, in Vietnam. They used to trade that for a pack of cigarettes. So when they come home from a nice patrol where where the bottle bodies got their head cut off, right? They can sleep a little bit. So they used to book, it didn't smell. It didn't, nobody can, they just either snore it, smoke it, or whatever, right? So I believe my uncle was a little Vietnam, past 68, because that's where the shift happened. My dad was early Vietnam. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
how and how that right there really affected my childhood, moving understanding drugs, right? My uncle, again, never recovered from addiction, died as HIV. My dad, a lot of alcohol, a lot of weed, but everything rooted from war. And I'm turning that around because kind of the same thing happened to us during war. Pills and opiates were given to veterans like it's candy, right? Yeah, we couldn't just smoke a little doobie that was all natural. You just smell a little bit. Like I wish I could have been smoking weed after patrol so I can just calm my mind.
Yeah,
Just
that's
saying.
interesting you brought that up because I've always thought the same thing. I feel like maybe I would have been a better soldier if I would have had cannabis. I would have been less stressed in the evenings. I probably would have slept better, I've had that same thought, the what ifs. What if I could have slept better? I would have had less
Yeah,
pain, probably better recovery from
yeah.
workouts. Yeah. Yeah.
I focus really well in a weird way, right? So again, these the lessons we have learned. I think DOD, and the administration is realizing that. right? I want to, tell me your experience on that. I want to read something that is very interesting really quick, and I want to share it with you guys. Well, give me, just tell me your experience, Jared.
Well, I get where it's interesting because my experience with cannabis, it started while I was still in the military. I experimented with it when I was with my cousin. But since I was still in the military, I couldn't go any further. And so
Okay.
I had to stop. But I didn't get back to cannabis until it was 2019 when I moved to Oregon. Oh, I moved to Oregon 2018, and it was 2019 when I started using cannabis. And I had a buddy here in Oregon that kept telling me about cannabis. He wanted to take me to a shop and kept putting it off because I really didn't know how much it would help, right? It was just in my own mind, what would it really help or just be another expense
Right.
that I have to pay for that I may not be
Right.
able to afford?
Yeah.
But little did I know that it wasn't as expensive as I thought it was, right? And it is affordable. But cannabis for me, I'm like you. I don't like want to incriminate myself, but I want to like for me when I
Hmm.
smoke,
Right.
I feel different. And what I mean do I feel different is that actually feel normal, if that makes sense. I could
Uh-huh.
be completely just up here. The very first bowl I hit will level me. And then the more I smoke, the more level I get. So for me, when people talk about being high, well, I don't know what that feeling is
Right.
other than for me, I feel locked. I call it locked in. My experience with cannabis is I call it locked in. I feel locked
Hmm.
in. I can focus. I can write. Yeah, the more I smoke, the more I write. I've noticed that it opens up my mind. My thoughts become more clear. So that's kind of my
Right.
experience with cannabis. Yeah.
That's interesting. I always think about war crimes, in Vietnam, because there was a clear distinction in the time, the Vietnam time frame. And, drugs were always a thing. Let's be real. Some people, whether it was alcohol they were able to drink, or whether it was cannabis. And then later on in Vietnam, it was heroin. Right. And I always wonder, has any of these crazy war crimes had like a crossover, right, between, drugs and war crimes? Was it ever a product of each other? You know what I mean? Doesn't make sense. Like, okay, let me be more clear, right? So cannabis can induce psychosis, right? While heroin can pretty much numb out basic feelings like sympathy, sedation, so you pretty much, right? So I wonder, can one of the other be the cause of people doing war crimes? So I found, and I actually love the answer Google gave me. It said there's no scientific evidence that either substance was a major factor. They believe major factor was poor leadership. And I was like, okay, so now somebody took responsibility. Slowly, that's a great answer to me. I was really excited to read that. But it does explain why we don't drink on deployment. Like, have you ever drank on a deployment? I never have. Well, I playing the fifth on that one, but I was never supposed to.
Drank on a I drank on deployment. I'll openly admit to it.
Right.
I did in Iraq.
Yeah.
In Talil, Iraq, was able to get whiskey from some Italian soldiers, and I got
Yeah.
shit faced, right? And you know what? For everyone listening, I lost my M4 and I got smoked. Okay, so you know what? I didn't do that stupid shit again, but I did. I did drink on deployment.
I'm playing the fifth. I'm playing the fifth. All I'm going to say is my last deployment was very fun. It was because I deployed in 2003. That was my first deployment, 2003, to the invasion. That deployment sucked. I mean, if you have issues taking a dump in a hole next to your battle buddy, you're in the wrong profession, baby. No water to take showers. You gotta choose between shaving and drinking water. And the water was like 90 degrees hotter than the environment. When did you deploy?
Me, I
Yeah.
deployed in '05.
That was the hard
Yeah.
time. So I deployed from 3 to '04 to late '04. We ended up going for like 16 months. Got extended.
Wow.
And then we
Wow.
came back in November '05 to November '06. And what I described that deployment was just the Wild West. It was wild, man. I mean, yeah. I think that one messed me up pretty good too. But I didn't deploy back until Operation New Dawn with out of Fort Bragg. We moved there. That deployment was nothing like the first two, mainly because I was in a different job environment. It was a lot of diplomacy. That's what it felt like, diplomacy.
Yeah.
Going to towns and talking to people and making friends and getting ready to get people out of Iraq. And I think we did a great job. We got everybody out great. No issues. I mean, we left a bunch of money, but that deployment was fun. There was a lot of things happening that shouldn't have happened. It was a lot of, I tell people my last deployment was like a college party on steroids every night. It was a party. It was just fun. Like I said, my first deployment, I was just a bum in the street. I have holes in my pants. I mean, it was bad. Second deployment, we were getting blown up every day. Third deployment, I believe I was an alcoholic already prior to my third deployment. That deployment didn't help much neither. So 3 different deployments. Yeah, man. And the one to Haiti was the worst one. But I do believe, right? If there would have, I used to smoke cigars. I used to get cigars, right? And that used to calm me down a lot. The tobacco nicotine.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
Just
Because
sit
I used
down,
to smoke cigarettes. Yeah.
yeah, and just sit down and just smoke a nice cigar. I mean, it was like a good evening, bro, right? But just imagine if it was a little flower in there, man, just a little sprinkle.
Yeah.
Yo,
Oh, yeah.
the stars, you can see all the stars going around. It's a bunch of stars. No, really, it's the enemy firing at you, motherfucker. Like, look up. Imagine that. Stone, like in my first deployment, they killed the Saddam Hussein kids, right? And the 2 boys. And I was sleeping on the roof, right? And at 1 minute, I opened my eyes and all I see is tracers. Like, so sleeping on the roof, there was like a concrete barrier all around, But the cat, the barrier barely covered me. Right. So I'm laying down here. I'm seeing tracers and all I did, I swear to you, I just rolled over, hit the ground, put the sleeping bag over my head and go sleep. Went back to sleep. So my point is, I can only imagine if I had a little doobie and I just open my eyes and I just see a bunch of stars just firing. That would be so cool. Anyhow, that was my that was one of my wild
Man. No, man. That reminded me of a time on a convoy when I was in the rear gun and our rear got lit up. And I remember just turning around and just seeing the rear. They just got lit up. I mean, the sky it was like the 4th of July. I was just like,
yeah.
damn. I mean, I don't know why they didn't hit us in the front, but the rear. Man, when we got to where
I
we're going,
honestly
they were just like, holy
Yeah,
fuck,
I
man.
honestly believe that if there was any cannabis available, I think I would have performed a lot better, and I think I would have come out a lot better. Because honestly, I can honestly say I was on prescription medication for my back pain. And during that time, they were giving it just like it was candy. I'm talking about all 3 or 4 right in the middle of the epidemic. People were just eating pills because we spent 18 hours with full gear battle rattle freaking doing patrols or a search on cordon, searching out in Mahala. Look, take up your thing, you soak, sweat, and then your body just tensed up. So what they do, they give you take this oxy, take it every 4 hours and take 2 days off, stay in your room, kind of shit. Dude, you're baked for 2 days, and although they give you 2 days worth of muscle relaxers and pain meds, that should give you like 5 days, just in case you can use a little bit extra. And those things were gone in 2 days, all prescribed, baby. Let me tell you, okay? Now, there might or might not be alcohol in the process, but if there was, just imagine how lit I was for 2 days. Yes, and I developed a habit that was like a part-time habit that I really enjoyed. But by the time I recognized that I enjoyed it, I was bleeding out of my stomach. Later on in life, after retirement, life of alcohol, pain meds, my prescription pills. I learned very quick that you cannot drink and take your meds together. So, but with weed, it's a little different. My mind, I would say this: the only thing about cannabis is that my tinnitus goes, it becomes worse. Do you feel the same or no?
Like when you're smoking cannabis, the tinnitus comes worse. Is
Yeah,
that what you said?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Honestly, for me, no. Everything feels clear when I smoke.
Yeah,
I even, I even, after smoke, I cough up a lot of shit that's in my lungs. So,
I do too.
like I said, for me, it helps me cough up a lot of shit that's in my lungs. I feel clear everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I meant when I used the term like locked in, because I just feel locked in.
Okay.
Like everything feels good.
Maybe that's why my tinnitus is so bad because everything else is kind of erased. You know what I mean? And all I hear is the beep, the freaking tinnitus.
I will definitely hear that. If I was to drop something, my ears would then ring like that probably all day. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
right now, I'm not ringing. So I'm having a good day.
yeah,
I'm not ringing.
yeah. I'm always ringing. I'm always ringing, and I'm not going to blame nobody. It was all me. Okay. When they tell you, make sure you got headphones, ear protections when you are in a 50 cal going down the Route Irish, trust me, wear ear protections. Right now, my last deployment, they used to have the communication. But man, I let that 50 roll one time. I couldn't hear for 3 days. Ever since, my hearing just went to shit. So anyway, cannabis has been a lifesaver.
Yeah. Well,
I drink for a reason. I really did. Drinking, it was good it was good for my spirit, for me to be happy, but it was very bad for my body to be healthy. I'm a happy drinker, so that's why it was always okay for me to be drunk. Because if I was sober, I was miserable. Now, I can smoke. I cannot smoke for days and I'll be totally fine. I'm calm. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I just got old, but I do think it has saved my life. I mean, I'm healthier, I'm skinnier, less pain, and I don't take as many meds. So, how about you?
well, for me, definitely a lifesaver. I mean, it's like we were talking before we came on. I've been doing aquatic training in the pool, and I'm going
Hmm.
back today. That's why I'm about to. I gotta get off pretty soon. I gotta get to that workout. But but I think cannabis has helped me recover in a lot of areas.
Hmm.
Right? Whether it's mentally, physically, or even emotionally, it's helped me to have that clarity. One way or another with cannabis, I get some relief. There are days where it may not relieve every symptom I have, but it does
Hmm.
relieve one symptom. And if it can relieve one symptom, it makes the night a lot better. It makes the day a lot better. And so, cannabis is not a cure all, but it's definitely something that helps all of us.
Yeah.
So, with that, it's to me, it's a game changer like you. It's a lifesaver. I can't see my life without it. I really can't.
And many will
But
call you an addict. To me, it's call me whatever you want. You don't gotta
yeah,
live with yourself.
yeah,
Like, hey, everybody, we can call it a crush, whatever. Everybody got that one thing, so anyways, man, it's reaching that time, man. I think it's a good
yeah.
time to wrap up the little series, man. Let me know if you guys enjoy. I'm a little nerd, so I always go into a tantrum in history that probably don't make sense to nobody. But if you got any questions, I'm telling you, drug use during Vietnam is very interesting. Okay. I challenge everybody to, look at it, you know, eh, check it out because it will tell you a lot. And maybe I love history. Maybe that's we should do. We should do a mini series about comparing hard drugs with alcohol, with cannabis.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. And there's a lot to talk about, because CIA, during World War II, I just learned a bunch of stuff about this. We Lucky Luciano, a partnership they did, which include the heroin trade out of Vietnam. So anyhow, my point is that it's very interesting, and I think that's what we can talk about next, maybe in a couple of weeks. All right,
That's all I got, my
big
brother.
later, man. Everybody have a great day.
Hey, enjoy y'all's weekend. All right, be safe.
Okay,
Love y'all.
okay, okay.
All
Love
right,
y'all. Bye.
man. Out, my brother.